Coming up this week on Beyond the Vibe, we're joined by Joe Bonson of Hollowstar.
I had a sort of a 5-year hiatus from the instrument. I didn't touch a guitar for 5 years. We'd been writing, we're halfway through writing the next album, so that is good news from our point of view. But with this next change, we do want to give whoever comes in the option and the kind of the freedom to have a bit of an input on the album. A whole generation of people that have been starved because they've been force-fed songs from 30 years ago. Mm-hmm. Don't get me wrong, right? And I'm going to be the first to stand by and say, not being funny, we should all be proud of these rock songs and these bands of 30 years ago. But there comes a point when you've got to change the channel a minute, because if that's all we're still listening to now, what comes next? You're literally down to silence.
Hello and welcome to Beyond the Vibe, the show that cuts deep into the world of music.
My name is Aaron Joe, lead guitarist in UK band These Wicked Rivers. Did I do the term well?
It doesn't quite have the same impact when it's from this particular angle.
We're on the sofa.
Yes,
it's difficult.
So we had like a double head thing there.
Bang! Get the other camera. Here we go. Bang! Fantastic. Who am I here with today? I'm here with music videographer and photographer, Mr. Ryan Basic.
It is. It's a very enthusiastic.
I'm feeling good, man.
Yes.
I'm feeling good because today we've got Mr. Joe from Hollowstar, one of the loveliest men in rock and roll. There are some lovely men in rock and roll and ladies.
Yes.
But Joe's one of the loveliest, and I enjoyed the chat that we did with him today. Today's very rare because I'm not wearing my new Wave Classic Rock shirt.
Yes, and of
had
course,
to go in the wash, didn't it?
Well, eventually I think it needed to, didn't it?
Yeah, it was getting a bit bad. I was wearing it for pretty much every episode.
Yes.
The trouble is we keep having so many great new Wave Classic Rock bands on, so it's difficult because I don't want to not not flex the shirt, man. I'm proud to be involved, and Hollowstar, one of them bands that I've always kind of been, on the upper tier of bands that we've always kind of looked up to. That debut album was really well received, really strong.
Yeah, it's they're a really cool band. They're very promising. They're starting to break through a bit more now as well. It's interesting to see where they're going. And Joe's such a humble guy. He's very down to earth, really cool dude.
Comes across really well in the interview.
Yes,
yeah. Such a good guy.
Yeah, it's varied, funny. Got everything that you want in an interview, and
reeling you in.
Exactly,
reeling you in. That's a problem.
And if you're still here, you can hear now.
So we're here with brother Joe of Hollowstar. Thanks for joining us, man.
No, thanks for having me. I do appreciate it.
He's looking wonderfully fresh. He's looking wonderfully fresh.
Wonderfully flesh. I'd like to think I have the flesh.
Yeah, you've got all the flesh, brother. It's looking lovely after being in a field for the weekend.
That's it. The first time in a long time. So we've needed it. We've needed it. I think everybody needed it. Not just the bands, the fans, the crew. Everybody out there needed it. So it's it's a welcome return.
Beautiful.
One thing that we like to do on the show is we like to go right back to the beginning of a musician's journey. So how did it all start for you? Did bass come first, or was it singing?
I've never had a bass lesson in my life. That's not the answer you were looking for, is it? For all you aspiring musicians, what you need to do is never try and then blag it right at the end. No, essentially, what happened for me was me and Phil both moved to... So me and Jack the drummer, obviously being brothers, we're kind of joined at that age as young kids. Our family moved into where we live now, around this area, at the same time that Phil's family moved here. So we were sort of the two kids from different areas of the country that had just moved into this school, started hanging around with each other. We live around the corner from each other in a little town here. And while the three of us was just knocking a football around one day, it was Phil's dad played guitar. And we'd always sit there watching Phil's dad playing guitar. And then when I'd go over to my dad's, mum and dad's friends, they owned a music shop in Cambridge, and he was always playing on a guitar. And yeah, we had this crazy little idea, and I mean, I must have only been about 10, and my younger brother Jack being about 7. So me and Phil at 10 years old, yeah, we're going to be in a band, and so we booked music lessons, and me and Phil booked guitar lessons. Jack booked his drums lessons, and we did that for a few years. By the age of about, I think we were 13 when we did our first show in our school, playing covers, and we had one of our own, I think, as well. And then from the age of 14, we'd managed to, I don't know how, but we'd managed to convince the local pubs that we were a good pub band. So from the age of 14, me, Jack and Phil had a covers band, and we were going around singing your Frees and your AC/DCs and your Lynyrd Skynyrd's in pubs around the town. And we did that all through our teen years, really. It was only when we got to our late teen years, all that stopped, and we all packed it in and went different ways. And then after I had a sort of a 5-year hiatus from the instrument, I didn't touch a guitar for 5 years.
Oh.
And came back. I'd spent some time doing some travelling and trying to figure myself out, figure the world out, and get my own opinions. How can you write songs and tell people an opinion if you haven't had long enough and you haven't done enough to figure it out yourself? So I went and did that. And Hollowstar was sort of the culmination of give it one last go. Everything had sort of come to a head in my life, and I was suffering really badly with my mental health. I'd had a couple of really bad turns. Luckily, I had my brother and the right friends around me, being Phil. And this is kind of what we started as a journey, just as a see if we can distract me from where I was at the time. And luckily, people have kind of switched into it. I mean, it's one of those. I mean, you guys know there's a lot of bands out there, and there's a lot of good bands out there. And the amount of time we spend on the circuit, even thinking like, how is this band not getting more recognition? So it's we're very lucky to have got to where we've got, I suppose.
Yeah, that's really cool, man. It's really interesting to hear that evolution. I think them years of sort of paying your dues, you've proper had a fucking rock and roll apprenticeship, because nothing's worse than playing to a load of pissed up blokes that have heard the same song sort of a million odd times, and now you've got to give it them one more time round. You've really, and I imagine you honed so many skills in them initial years.
Yeah, crowd management. And I think it's one thing my dad always said to me when I was growing up. He said there's two different types of people in bands. Because you've got all your musicians, but at the very front you've got two different types of people. You've got singers and you've got the front man. You don't necessarily have to be a good singer to be the best front man. Yeah. You don't necessarily have to be a front man to be a good singer. Every now and again, Freddie Mercury is a prime example. You do get somebody that nails both. But if you've got an area you feel weak, and for me, I never really felt that the vocals were my strength. I mean, growing up as a teenager, when we were doing the covers band, I wasn't the singer. I was the rhythm guitarist. I had a guitarist that could play like Phil, and there was a guy that could sing. So I just did backing vocals, and so I never really thought vocals was my strength. But so I really focused on the knowing what to say, when to say, how to say, taking the audience on the journey of the show. People don't, if you just want the songs, you can put a CD on. When you buy a ticket, you want a show, you want a journey. I try and make a point in every show. At one point of every show, I will make you both laugh and cry in that little period. And it's giving people that emotional ride, really.
Well, Freddie's the perfect example of that, isn't it? We talk a lot about different reasons we're into bands, me and Ryan. It's a similar thing, is that you go and you, like for me, the legendary bands, you go and you're expecting certain things, you're expecting that journey and to go on that ride, and then it's cool to have a few different things thrown in there. And it really helps you feel connected to a band, I find, because you get connected to what they're trying to achieve in the music. In terms of that initial start of the Hollowstar, bro, did you immediately go into that vocalist role? Because obviously you weren't doing that before. What were the conversations like around that?
Well, it was weird, really, because I'd just got my mindset that when I'd got to this point and Jack said, "What are we doing to fix it?" I wanted a band.
Yeah.
And I was at that point 25 years old, and I was just gung ho. I want a band, and I'm going to make this happen. Jack was fully with me at this point, obviously being my brother. He was there on the ride. He'd been travelling with me. Me and Jack have always been brothers and best mates. So we kind of hit it together. And the first thing that we both kind of said to each other is, if we want to make this work, we need to get Phil on board. we learn instruments together. He's the guy that we've always played music with. We've got a kind of a sixth sense for how each other's going to go because of playing together for so long. And to be honest, as I always say, Phil's the talent to my enthusiasm. So utilise what's round you, and then that kind of the search began. Us three were jamming for a good year, and trying to find both a bass player and a guitarist, because I'd decided that I had something I wanted to say. I love lyrics. I really like the lyric side of things and the putting a message across, and like I said, the showman side of things. So I wanted to take that on and be able to advance that a little bit more. But when we couldn't find a bass player, we'd go through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and at the end of the night they'd go home, I'd pick the bass up, and we'd have a jam of the songs. And I think it was after about 6 months of that, Phil basically said, look, I'm bored of this. Like either you just play the bass and we crack on, or I'm going to go do something else. Right. so I picked up the bass, and that's kind of how it went. Tom worked with Phil, so from that point it was okay. We just need the guitarist. Tom came in for a session, and added a new element to it. He did add a bit of a sort of metal element to where me and Phil were a bit more blues rocky, and it sort of grew from there, really.
Oh, cool.
So your self-titled debut album came out back in 2019. What was that time like for you guys? Because like going into the studio for the first time, doing a full album, it's a different one.
Exciting. I mean, it's the whole thing. When we look at the album, we've always come from the angle of let's see if we can do this, and let's see if we try and do a lot of things ourselves. I think too many bands have been bitten through history. It's not uncommon knowledge, the amount of bands that have been bitten by signing the wrong bit of paper throughout their career. With the platforms that are out there and how accessible things are, we've always wanted to try and obviously do things ourselves. And that even down to the album. I remember Phil saying to me when on the day one when we were going into the studio and we were having a conversation about what do we think the perception would be and how do we think people are looking forward to it. And Phil just turned around and he said, I don't care, because even if this goes wrong, when I do drive to my mundane job that I've had to go back to because it hasn't worked, I have an album that I'm proud of, that I've made, of music that I want to listen to.
Yeah, I love that.
And that kind of stuck with me for the whole process. And yeah, we did say everything's been self-released, everything's been self-managed, no label from the very beginning. And yeah, it's just been a labour of love. So it's been exciting, and it's just nice to have that something. It's nice to have that physical product. And like I say, the way other people received it has just been crazy. I mean, that's a bonus. I mean, that's obviously what enables us to go and do these bigger and better things, and we're ever thankful of it. But I suppose the first and foremost thing is we've got something that we've got for when it all goes pop, I suppose.
I like that though, man, because it's like, I think at the core of doing anything in life, particularly with its music or art, you've got to be happy and proud of it for yourself, because then when all else fails, you can still hold it and think, you know what, I'm happy with this and the experience and all that's come from it.
That's it.
That's the core of it, and that leads us nicely sort of with that whole organic thing and self-funded thing into the new wave of classic rock and kind of their influence. You know, obviously they're bringing out the Volume 1 compilation album, which obviously me and the boys are proud to be on. And we've chatted to a lot of different bands about that community and the support. And I imagine for you guys, like you say, because it's always been sort of self-funded and that tight community of the band, like how's that been in terms of the new wave of classic rock and how beneficial they've been?
Amazing, to be honest. I mean, we kind of timed the band nicely with, I suppose, the growth of communities like that. We were lucky that, I suppose, the hunger has been generated for so many years through these rock fans, and everything kind of came together at the right time. You've got an abundance of talented, new and emerging, some not necessarily so new, but now only just getting the recognition, so emerging rock bands. And you've got a whole generation of people that have been starved because they're being force-fed songs from 30 years ago. Mm-hmm. Don't get me wrong, right? And I'm going to be the first to stand by and say, not being funny, we should all be proud of these rock songs and these bands of 30 years ago. But there comes a point when you've got to change the channel a minute, because if that's all we're still listening to now, what comes next? You're literally down to silence when that ends. So it's kind of that awareness of, and you list the number of bands out there that are actually so good and should be getting so much more recognition than what they're getting. But with new wave of classic rock now, these bands are being put in front of people that are seeing this generation of people. Even like myself, it took me a while to give in to the world of social media. We've given in. We're here. There's now groups that are full of us that are looking, and we're hungry. And it just creates that platform, doesn't it? At the end of the day, it comes back to product, people that want product. And there needs to be somewhere for people to see this. And for us all, the best thing about new wave of classic rock, it's not done in a way that's, let me go look at adverts. Here's a community of people that all think like you and all can share your opinions and show you, and for what's out there. It's a beautiful little thing. I think we should all embrace every community like that.
No, that's awesome. I love the way you articulated it, man. I mean, we chatted to a lot of people about it, but you put it across really well. I mean, we had Brad out of Massive. Me and Ryan had chatted with him the other day because on his podcast he did basically an episode featured on that change, you know, and how like festivals and gig promoters, they've got a responsibility because eventually their headliners are going to disappear, as you said, and it will just be silence, you know. And it's a really interesting debate because it's like, I love the way you said it about quality of product, giving people that quality of product, and because as time goes on, them older bands aren't giving the quality of product that the fans deserve because they're getting to that age where for themselves they're kind of not able to deliver that. There's a lot of bands that can still do that, like Maiden and Priest, you know, but there's a lot of bands that aren't reaching that, and these younger bands are rising to that, you know, and it's just giving them the platform, and new wave of classic rock, like you say, gives them that.
That's it. I mean, you've only got to look at what's happened recently with the big Tokyo push. Look at the amount of people that come together with everything going on that can find a little bit of time to come and sing a song together, dancing around their living room in their pajamas or whatever. Just the fun that it brings as well, like that togetherness in itself. The amount of people that have messaged each other just going, oh, how you been? I ain't seen you in a while, just because you're doing something together again. So it adds a little bit more as well. And that comes from the fan side as well. Yeah. They'll see somebody post on something, you're all right, I haven't seen from you in a while, or it's the community that comes from it. And at the end of the day, that's what music should be. It's a big community. That's what it's all about at the end of the day. So.
Speaking of that community, obviously recently you returned to gigging, playing Love Rocks Festival. This looked really cool, like being able to go back and play the gig. How was it for you guys, being able to...
No, it was horrible.
Yeah.
Fucking shit. Just as shit as I remembered it. Fucking pain in the arse.
Massive anticlimax.
No, it was really, really needed. I mean, it's been a long time since we've been able to get out there and do it in the flesh. It's been a long time since we've been able to see each other. It's been a testing time, not just for musicians, but everybody in the industry. So everybody from the people that hire these stages out to the people that run the lights, the sound, the bands, the guys that are on security. We're an industry that's completely had our income taken away for so long now that not just from the actual relief of what we're doing, we're at a festival that would normally give you joy, the fundamentals of what that provides to so many people that have waited so long to be able to provide for their families and bits like that is amazing. So just really glad that it could have happened, and relieved that it still went ahead, obviously with the things that have been said recently and the latest sort of the latest news that Boris has let us know of.
We chatted about it before we started the interview, Joe, and I like what you said about seeing the same faces, because I can remember I watched a video of Peter sharing countless sort of recordings on the New Wave group of people playing, and I was like, shit, fucking this thing's happening. Shit, like I need to get dressed. Do you know what I mean? Like I need to prepare for normal life again, man. You know, and it was nice to see that, and I bet for you just to see them same faces and like you say, have that sense of community back was just unreal.
Well, I don't know if you were the same, but from my side of things, I had a real anxiousness to what would be left at the end of this. Like from a relatively small band's perspective, like we are, in Hollowstar. We work hard. Every ticket sold is very hard fought for. There's a very strong community, but I always think that the community that appreciates the music is still a lot smaller than the community that's out there buying tickets and turning up at shows. Unfortunately, I do think that could be one of the benefits of the whole past year, creating a hunger in these people that for years have said, I could go to a gig, but I'm going to sit and watch telly. Maybe they've just been reminded of, when you've got that choice, do take it, because you might not always have that choice. And maybe we'll see that resurgence. So for us, it's that relief that all those hard-fought tickets and those really, really loyal fans, you're still here. We haven't lost everything. There's still a stage. There's still a bunch of people. You've remembered my words better than I have. So it's just a bit of a relief, yeah.
No, that's cool, man. You're getting me giddy and excited now. See, we've not really had a proper gig back yet, me and the boys in Rivers, because we weren't down for Love Rocks. So I'm nervous as well. I'm worried I'm gonna have cardiac just from the fucking running around and not doing.
When's your first one?
It's the day after you've got that, because we've got Wolfjaw down for it. It's the day after you're playing with them in Bilston if it goes ahead. So it's the 26th of June, but it was gonna be stand-ins, but we've decided to do it seated, and we've just sent emails out to folks and just see what they want to do, you know. So it's because we were that desperate. Like, I think the initial disappointment, we kind of said, look, like, I said to you earlier, I don't know. Yeah. I think if you get frustrated by it and then end up cancelling the gig, I think you're giving in to the situation, where you've got to try and do what you can to, if possible, provide the best platform just to make the most out of it, you know. And I saw Wagons play with Scam in Chester, where everyone was sat down, and it was fucking weird as shit seeing Baz running around like he does, like, and everyone sat down, like they're at bingo. But fuck it, you know, it was making the most of it and still.
That's what they say: overcome and adapt, and that's got to be the. I think everybody's got to take a little bit of that from this time, hasn't it? So it's. Yeah. I mean, we did one during the little easing in lockdown where everybody was sitting down. A great little venue down in Gravesend, Leo's Red Lion, run really well by the Rock Cooperative guys. Always look after all their bands. Always a great crowd. Always full house, always full as it can be as well, depending on how many they let in. And but the noise they still made. Even sitting down, so I wouldn't let that worry you. Or even sitting down, the noise they make, it's refreshing.
Oh, that's cool, man. I can't wait. I appreciate that. I'm looking forward to it. Now, you mentioned about, obviously, your transition from reluctantly becoming a bass player. You're kind of intent on that, working on your lyrics and that frontman thing, because obviously it's a very different thing going from being a frontman, so, you know, a soul vocalist, to being a frontman and bass player. And there's obviously lots of figures, you know, legendary rock and roll figures that have done that. Was there anyone in for you that inspired you in terms of creating that character? You know, because we talk a lot about the fact that when you go on stage, you almost become somebody else a little bit, you know, and you tap into that character. Was there any initial inspiration for you that you took for that role?
I mean, a lot of it, I try and be myself, but if you think yourself plus, so yourself fired up on caffeine, yeah. Joe on steroids, basically. So I never want to do anything that isn't me, but I want everything to be bigger, bolder, more pronounced, more inclusive. When I must have only been about 11, maybe 12. But my mum and dad, they were into a band called Thunder. And as I was growing up, it was that reluctant thing of just like, nah, that's my mum and dad. If you listen to that, I'm not listening to it. That's your music. I'm doing my own thing. And they'd forced me, basically. I had no choice. I had no friends to run off to. And they were playing on Scarborough Beach, and we had to go, and that was it. We were going. And we were stood there, and watched Danny Bowes on this beach. And then right at the end of the night, after putting on this amazing crowd-controlling performance, they did dance to the music, and he split the audience down the middle, and half was doing this, and half was doing that. And the band just completely fell quiet. And this must have been about 10:30 at night on a beach with all these lights going off. The band goes dead. And the noise of 3,000 people on this beach, and as a kid at 11 years old, and just watching all these people dancing around, singing, that for me, that's why I wanted to be in a band. Because on the drive home, my dad said to me, I don't remember saying it, but my dad said to me on that drive home was the first time I turned around and said, Dad, I want to be in a band. So probably I've got to put it down to Danny Bowes as to as to the big front man and he had such strong lyrics as well. And then another guy that really did bring me back to songwriting, there's a band called Matchbox 20, and I listened to a lot of Matchbox 20. Their singer-songwriter Rob Thomas, and the lyrics in his music are insane. The storytelling in Matchbox 20's music, especially the earlier stuff. Avoid the more recent stuff. But it's insane. And just reading them and watching sort of like videos of him with his lyrics, and that really inspired me to get back storytelling. So then I sort of just smashed the both together, and then just went and made a mess on stage, I guess.
That's cool. One thing that we like to ask people on the show is kind of what they do like away from the stage. So has there been like any hobbies or anything that you've got into over lockdown? Anything?
To be honest, lockdown's changed me in a few ways. I think lockdown's been healthy in a few ways for me, because it has allowed me time to reflect on maybe some things that I was getting misdirected with, or maybe thoughts that were creeping in that I've had time to adjust and bits and bobs. And finding things that I didn't realise. Cooking. I really like cooking. So through lockdown, me and the girlfriend, we've made this thing. We've just basically stopped doing anything in packets or jars or anything. No, and we've gone right back to bare ingredients, and I'm really enjoying what we can create with food. So yeah, I am during lockdown a lot of cooking, because that is a big thing for me. I do like sports. It's not a new thing. Football and Formula One. I've always been.
Who's your team?
Yes.
Leeds United for me.
Oh, that's all right. What are you for? Ryan's a United fan, so I mean he can't say anything, can he?
Well, it doesn't sound like it, but I was born and raised in Yorkshire, and then when I was a child, middle of age sort of child, my family moved down to near Cambridge, and then now I sound like this, unfortunately. So when I go home, I get destroyed by all the locals when I go back home.
I'd be proud to be a Leeds fan. I think that.
Oh, I am. Very proud.
Yeah, I'd be proud to be that. I mean, it's going to turn into a football chat now, isn't it?
Especially
the football chat.
We'll leave it at, especially after the Calvin Phillips performance.
Oh, yeah, beautiful, man.
In the Euros.
Beautiful.
I think, yeah, I'm very proud of their first season. So no, but yeah, and I've always been into my Formula One as well. But yeah, I've sort of found, like I say, new joys: cooking, walking. I've found myself doing other bits. I've reached that age now. I'm in my 30s. I've become aware that if I don't move in a while, it aches. So I've made a point of doing more walking, and I've got back on a bike for the first time in 10 years, and yeah, I'm looking back to finding some more of my old hobbies, like sitting in a pub and.
It's good, man. It's nice. It's all positive. I'm loving the positive vibes.
Always positive. There's enough negativity in this world. You don't need me being another one.
Yeah, that's it, brother. That's it. Now, obviously, Ryan mentioned about the fact that your debut album was 2019. Obviously, we've had the shit show that was locked down, and coming out of that, obviously, there's been some changes in the band, as you mentioned sort of before. You know, what's the plan sort of for the next stage of Hollowstar? Have you been writing during lockdown? You know, where do you see the whole sort of next chapter of the band going, Joe?
I mean, it's an interesting thing. I think, to be honest, it doesn't change too much from the angle of what we want to do next, I suppose, and where the band's going. In the very beginning, as I said, when we spoke about how the band set up, it was me and Jack having a conversation. We need to get Phil on board. We got Phil on board, and we went on the search, and we brought Tom in. So in a way, it's almost just like going back to something we've got experience in. We just need to find the final piece again. But this time we're in a better position. We know what we're doing a little bit more. When we had that first go, I'll be honest, we had no idea. I mean, we still have no idea really, but we have a bit more of a clue. We had no following. Nobody knew who we was because we've been out of music for so long. Now at least people, I'd like to think there's a few people that are aware of who we are, and when we have got new music, they'll be sort of ready to listen and are hungry for it. So it's about making sure that we've got the right final piece member-wise. Lockdown, we have been writing. Before we got the information, obviously, that Tom was obviously different aspects had changed, and Tom had to change his life, obviously, quite dramatically. We'd been writing. We're halfway through writing the next album, so that is good news from our point of view. But with this next change, we do want to give whoever comes in the option and the kind of the freedom to have a bit of an input on the album. We've always seen the band is a family. The band will always be a family. It's not somebody new coming in to just do bits on what we've got going on. So we want them to have an input. So we'll get the right band in place, get the final member in. We'll get them in with us. We'll make some noise together. We'll mash some tunes together, and then finish the album, and then all in good time. We don't want to rush it. I think everybody, you've got a backlog of people that are desperate to get things out that were supposed to be out during COVID, that are then on top of that, the people that would have been releasing now anyway, the people who are clawing back at lost time and rushing things through. You've got, I think the sensible thing personally for a band to do at the moment is just to pick the right time, not just try and throw it out as soon as you can to claw back this time we've lost.
It's good in some ways, because obviously even though it's always difficult when you have that change in a band, it means you can take a breath. Like you say, with lockdown, you can take a breath and look at what you want from that next chapter. And it's cool for whoever comes in, because you've got a very much your own identity and sound. And I think for a guy coming into that, it'll be a cool prospect for you and for them. So no, I'm looking forward to it, man. Seeing what that next chapter holds for you.
No, thank you. No, it's exciting times.
Speaking of that, obviously we know that gigs are kind of returning in some kind of way. Yeah. We say that. So have you guys got anything planned for like maybe later on in the year to go back?
Yeah, I mean, we have got good news. We did get email come through, obviously with the news that's come through of the extension by 4 weeks. Following that, we did get email confirmation that Call of the Wild will be going ahead.
Yeah, man.
So even though it's going to be at limited capacity, or whatever changes they have to make, it is going to be going ahead. So we will see people at Call of the Wild. If you've got your tickets, we're going to be there. We get to do it all again. There's something that isn't going missing. And then obviously, I mean, it does look by the time we're in September, things should be by then finally giving up the ghost. So then we hit the road, obviously UK tour with the Mason Hill boys and the guys from Empire, and we get back to doing what we do: sweaty venues, sticky floors, and lots of noise.
Beautiful. We'll see it. Call of the Wild.
Yes.
Yeah, we're down for it. The boys are.
We'll be straight down the front. You know we will.
Yeah, fucking love it, man. It's great.
Work hard, play hard. That's how we do it.
Yeah, man. I can't wait. Like you say, just to get back onto it and just get back into the flow is going to be fucking very sexy. And that tour with Mason Hill and Empire is a proper new wave classic rock shindig as well. Absolute celebration, man.
I'm not being funny. It highlights what you go back to about with like groups like your new wave of classic rock. It's shown what that's done for bands. I'm not being funny. This is Mason Hill. That is a band that's got the highest, essentially it's got the highest self-released debut album since Lonely the Brave in 2014. They've hit top 20. I only know that because Lonely the Brave, he lives over the road from me, just over there, the drummer. he's a mate of mine, is old Mo. So yeah, I've been reminded. But yeah, and a top 20 album, but that kind of power has been created by obviously these groups, these online presences, and obviously goes back to the fact that there is a hell of a lot of good bands out there that just need to be given more exposure.
Yeah, man.
Finally, one thing that we like to kind of end the show on, it's a bit of a hypothetical question. If you could tour with one band from the past and one band from the present, who would they be?
Oh, God, that's dangerous, isn't it?
Yeah.
Everybody struggles with this question.
It's a right answer, isn't it?
There's a lot to choose from. Let's be honest. Well, it's got to be the Rivers, isn't it?
No, you can't. We've got a general rule on the show that you can't blow smoke up the arse. It can't happen, man.
In all honesty, I do think we haven't done enough together. So it's
definitely a thing, man. Because I'm feeling the love, and I don't think we've had enough time to work on this bromance, Like
that's it. But we straight Valentine's cards in the post,
Yeah, I'll be turning up at your house.
Who would it be? So I don't know. I think I'd quite like to do a tour with Alter Bridge. Because just to be able to... Miles Kennedy, I'm not being funny, that guy, what he's done, the condition he still keeps himself in, to keep that voice in that condition. If you look at the difference between him and some people at his age that have been in rock bands since they were in their 20s trying to sing still, I mean, the conditioning of that guy, and how hard he works, and the voice that comes with it, stood next to a guy that plays guitar like Mark Tremonti. I mean, that's got to be worth a go, isn't it?
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I wouldn't mind to go at an Alter Bridge tour, to be fair. I mean, Past, that's a tough one because there's so much to go from. You'd want to get involved on one of the big sort of famous ones, wouldn't you? But then for me, would I rather be playing Woodstock or doing one of the festivals rather than the tour? I think I'd want to go back to a festival like it was in the late 60s, early 70s and do that, I think.
Like a mega line out.
Yeah, here we are. You've got everybody you can imagine. We're in a field. You can actually afford it. Come and enjoy yourself. Before all the corporates got hold of everything and they ruined everything and put the price up and put barriers around everywhere.
I mean, I'm very emotionally connected to Woodstock. I mean, has Joe found like a sneaky fucking...
It feels like a cheat code. I feel like
he's found a cheat code.
Yeah.
To having multiple old bands. Are we gonna? We're gonna have to bring something in here. If you could bring on anyone, you're at Woodstock. Hollowstar smashing it, obviously, and you can bring somebody on to jam with you.
Yeah.
Who you're bringing on? Yeah, they have to be at Woodstock.
I'm gonna go for who I think was the most underrated guitarist that's ever lived. I saw him live, and unfortunately, he didn't live long enough for me to have seen him more times. Gary Moore.
Oh yeah, big, very close to my heart, Gary Moore. Yeah,
that would be my choice.
That's a solid choice.
You did well to see him. I never got the chance to see him, and he's massive idol for me, Gary Moore. I agree. I think he's so underrated. It's because he didn't have that rock star vibe. He was more of a workhorse guitarist and a workhorse musician.
It was all about the blues, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It was just. I mean, he went more rocky and then comes back to the blues. As he makes it. But no, we saw him in Cambridge. Me and Phil went together to see him. Both of our dads went. It was my dad, Phil's dad, and me and Phil, and went along. And yeah, we were quite lucky with our parents. I'll be honest. Without them giving us the opportunities they gave us, we'd be. There's a lot of kids that don't get these chances, isn't there? There's a lot of kids that almost their needs or the little extra bits get shrugged off where parents are too busy or distracted or maybe don't care enough in some cases, unfortunately. But we were lucky. We had good parents, and they did things like take me to see Gary Moore.
Shout out to all the rock and roll parents.
Yes.
That's it.
So we've got Woodstock, we've got Hollowstar playing, Alter Bridge are on, and then halfway through Hollowstar's set, Gary Moore comes on. Just turns up and shreds it. I mean, that's banging, that, isn't it?
Solid.
Oh, we're all over there. Sign me up now.
Yeah, I'm well into that, man. All right, cool. Joe, thanks ever so much for coming on, man. It's fucking really good to see you.
No, thank you for having me. It's great to see that guys like you are doing these. Like I say, it's all about the scene at the end of the day, and it's the community that we create. So thank you so much for helping us all stay together.
No, bless you, man. Cool. Thanks for the good vibes. And for anyone who's not checked out Hollowstar, make sure you follow them on all the normal social media platforms. Check out that debut album that came out in 2019. If you're going to Call of the Wild, we'll see you all there. Make sure you check out Hollowstar and all the other great bands that are there. We love you all. And yeah, thanks ever so much, Joe. See you at Call of the Wild, brother.
See you then.
So yes, that was Joe, lovely Joe from Hollowstar. And I think you'll agree after watching that interview that he is lovely Joe by name. Lovely Joe by nature. That was very creepy, and I didn't mean it to be. It was nearly as creepy as, and you can hear that now. Lovely camera change by Mr. Vasey. Yeah, we really enjoyed chatting to Joe, didn't we?
It was really cool, dude.
Yeah, he's like, as you put very well before we segued into the interview. It was a chat that kind of had everything. You know, I love the way he articulates kind of the whole scene and community, as well as lots of different band members have from new wave classic rock scene, as well as just the return to gigging. Like, it's getting me excited, man.
Yeah, well, this was it. Like, you know, I'm not even in a band, and by the end of it, I was excited.
That triangle playing, though, we'll get you there. Don't
this
worry.
Is it. My services in triangle playing are still available. So, new wave classic rock bands out there, just think about that for a bit. Yeah.
You want a man in leather trousers playing the triangle?
I know. I could be the most stylish triangle player going.
Stylish is not the word. We'll move on well there. But yeah, man, like we've not gigged a lot with Hollowstar that much, and as Joe said, you know, it's something that's long overdue, and I'm you know, unknown of when this. I'm pretty sure Joe's episode will come out before Call of the Wild Festival.
Yeah.
And I can't wait to just return, because obviously he's been to Love Rocks and we've not done Love Rocks.
Yeah.
So the idea of going back to a festival like Call of the Wild and all them bands coming together, it makes me very giddy and very excited.
Yeah, it's Call of the Wild in particular. It's got a hell of a line out this year.
Yeah, it's pure. I think they're all UK-based bands. And pretty much all up and coming. Like Wagons are headlining one, Glorious are on a night. And obviously me and the boys are playing it. The Hot Damn are playing it. Like Josie's new band.
Essentially, most of the people we interview.
Yes.
are at this festival.
You're coming as well, aren't you?
Apparently so.
Yeah. He'll be wandering around.
Well, the thing is that this is like on my doorstep virtually. It's not very far away.
Well, it'll be interesting because it's the first you've interviewed since we've been doing this gig. Like you've been interviewed a lot of bands and chatted to them, and obviously chat to them away from the vibe. But it'd be cool for you to actually see them sort of doing their thing. Yeah,
and again, Hollowstar has added to that list of bands that I'd love to check out, and I will be doing if everything goes to plan.
Yes, but if people want to check out more of our content, Mr. Basie, where can they find it?
Well, if you like what we're doing, you can go on our Facebook, and every Wednesday you'll find from 10 a.m. there is a new teaser trailer featuring our new guest.
Yes, and we have a different guest every week, and that show comes out on a Saturday at 10 a.m. available on YouTube, Spotify and Apple Podcasts. But YouTube's probably the best place because then you get to see our pretty faces, And we have a different guest every week, not just from the New Wave Classic Rock, from all over. We have quite a nice variety, and it could literally be anyone, couldn't it?
It could literally be anybody. I mean, at the time of recording this, I'm not sure, but I think it was last week that we had Richard Shaw of Cradle of Filth, and now we've got Hollowstar.
Yes, literally anyone.
It could be anybody. I mean, that you can't get more varied than that.
No, that's it. So make sure you tune in to check that out and join the vibe.
Yes.
And if you're watching on YouTube, make sure you click subscribe, click the bell so you never miss an episode. And we love you all. Thanks for the support, and we'll see you all soon.
Yes, see you next week.